for those of you who are up very early, and good afternoon for some of you in Paris. I'm Sue Vise. I'm with the UNESCO office in Bangkok, and I will be moderating the session today. So I won't be saying very much, but I would like to welcome you all, and just make sure that you know in the chat box on the side, you can see there's some instructions for when you want to place a question. If you haven't figured out the how to use anything, perhaps you can look at the instructions would have been in your email that you received as well. And those questions will be fed to the speakers throughout the session. So we're going to start with introductory remarks by Anna Maria Maliouf, who is the Acting Chief of Section for Inclusion and Rights at UNESCO headquarters in Paris, and is the Secretary for ICCAR. So over to you, Anna Maria.
Thank you very much, Sue. And it is a pleasure to see all of you, Excellencies, dear panelists and guests, ladies and gentlemen, and Professor Shin. Nice to see you again. We just met in a workshop there 30 minutes ago. So welcome to this meeting of the Global Steering Committee of UNESCO's International Coalition of Inclusive and Sustainable Cities at the 10th World Human Rights Cities Forum. Let me first thank the Metropolitan City of Gwangju and of course Professor Shin for the invitation to UNESCO to take part in this important event. And let me also congratulate them for the excellent program that the forum is offering us in spite of the current context. So ladies and gentlemen, as you know, and through the years, several events and challenges have really shaken our world, from violations of universal human rights to the global economic crisis and of course the COVID-19 pandemic. And here our collective experience calls really upon a collective response. Now, as you all know, ICCAR was founded by UNESCO in 2004 to establish a global front against racism. It was revitalized in 2014 and has since grown to have over 500 members worldwide. At one point, we actually have to count all these members, structured into 7 regional and national coalitions. Today, it has become a unique city-level platform in the UN system and also in the international community, illustrating this very strong commitment to provide collaborative platforms for city governments. The commitment is put further into context by the member coalitions in order to respond to the needs of their respective local settings through the implementation of the 10-point plan of action, which, as you know, address several issues and encourage member cities to develop social policies and also deliver services that will fight against discrimination. Now, in order to ensure the realization of these goals and initiatives, a global steering committee was established in 2016, with its central role being aimed at the consolidation, coordination, support, in alignment of strategies, and also facilitate actions and collaboration, and of course, advocacy and the promotion of the visibility of the coalition. That is very important. Now, in addition to this process, the need for a review of the 10-point plan of action of each coalition has become an indicator of progress and commitment, which is clearly cross-cutting both in the Bologna Declaration and in the Nancy Declaration, both adopted by the Global Steering Committee in 2016 and in 2018, respectively. Today, it has become crucial that these plans of actions are aligned with the SDGs, and also that they take into account a gender equality dimension, which, as many of you know, is really one of UNESCO's 2 global priorities along with Africa. Now, the 10-point plan of action is aimed at the common goal of achieving inclusive and sustainable cities for all. These plans have their distinct references to each coalition, and the commitments are really tailored to address your specific needs in your respective regions. I think it should also be noted that central to each one of these plans of action is really the fight against racism and discrimination, as well as, of course, the common goal of achieving a fair and equal society. When even analyzing it in detail, the 10-point plan of action is in itself a call to action, combining various response processes and measures to ensure the security of society, especially of the most vulnerable groups. And we have a long list of those most vulnerable groups. Now, with examples of commitments ranging from vigilance to assessment and monitoring, to support and also participation and awareness raising, all these really reflect a very clear commitment to a collective goal for all of us. Equally critical to our understanding of how to best deliver is an understanding of the intersectionality that exists, ranging from ethnic belonging to gender, disability, age, social status, etc., that also contribute to shaping our world. Now, finally, we, UNESCO, would really like to call for a renewed commitment of our member coalitions by creating new partnerships and moving forward through concrete and results-oriented actions. You should know that our work with the cities, it's not only very important, it is also highly valued for the community, for the continuation of these common goals. So the cities are very important for us. Never forget that. I hope that this meeting is going to be very inspirational, forward-looking, and most of all meaningful in our continuation of these collective goals towards achieving a just and an inclusive society for all. Thank you.
Thanks for those introductory remarks, Anna Maria, and looking forward to also being inspired by the session. Next, we will have welcome remarks from Benedetto Zaccaroli. All of those of you who've been involved with ICCAR before probably know Benedetto already. He is both the president of the ICCAR Global Steering Committee and the president of the ECCAR, the European Coalition of Cities Against Racism, which is one of the very active ones in our region. So over to you, Benedetto.
Thank you very much, Sue. Thank you very much, everybody. I apologize in advance for my voice that today started like this, so please forgive me. And then, so I barely recognize myself listening to me, but it's okay. So first of all, thanks to the city of Gwangju and thanks to the Professor Shin, thanks to UNESCO, thanks everybody. First of all, to organize, despite this really horrible time with COVID that is blocked us in our country, but also thanks to UNESCO and the others to make the occasion, this occasion possible. And for that, my introduction will be really, really, really brief. I don't want to stall time for our discussion. So if the main goal of today is just to make the point of how revitalization of the 10-point plan of action is possible in each country, in each region of us, I think that we have to start suddenly without lost ourselves in my words that are unuseful for that aim. So thanks for everything, and we can start quickly. Thank you.
Okay, that was very brief, but we understand you have to save your voice because you have a presentation coming up in a minute as well. So I'm not sure all of our speakers have arrived yet, so I hope I'm not going to put anybody on the spot if I suggest we change the order of the speakers. So Professor Shin, would you be okay to go next while we wait for the other speakers to arrive? I don't see them online yet. Is that okay? So Professor Shin is the leads representing Gwangju City, not only our host for this event, but the lead city for Asia and the Pacific. And Professor Shin is the Senior Advisor for Human Rights and International Affairs and has been associated with the World Human Rights Cities Forum for many years. So many of you participating will probably know him. So over to Asia Pacific.
This is, in fact, the file when we had a meeting with ICCAR members. So this is, in fact, the first meeting after a long sleep of the ICCAR, probably 4 years, 6 years. Do you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
See, then. So I will go ahead without the PowerPoint file because this machine is new to me. So what the ICCAR is planning to do is, after a long time of dormance, to revitalize with studying this forum, then with the help of the ICCAR members in the other regions. So we are planning to have annual award to the members, and we also planning to form a new steering committee, annual meetings, everything from the scratch, almost scratch, and then connection stopped working at the moment. So we will start to revitalizing the networking in Asia Pacific region quite frequently with the help of Sue, and then we can mobilize our own network, which have been developed through World Human Rights Cities Forum. So I think when we meet again next year or half year later, I can give you something different from I can tell now today. So I want to learn more from this meeting today. And then thank you for your participation. Even though I am very sorry that I cannot have your physical presence at this time, even though we plan to invite you all to stay here. But it was not materialized, but probably next year again, if the situation is getting better, then I am very happy to invite you all to stay with us, to have a physical meeting with more dynamic interaction among us. I am looking forward to another meeting soon. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Professor Shin. We can see your slides. Did you want to try to move through them?
I need help. 1 minute, please.
Okay. So in the meantime, we have been joined by Mr. Mohammed El Nahawi from Mauritius. Mauritania. I'm terrible with countries. Mauritania. My geography in that part of the world is not so good. We'll just give 1 minute to see if we can get those slides to work.
So I got the emergency help from my colleagues, younger people. In fact, I used to work with the Apple computer long time ago, but I converted myself to the Microsoft Office. So I will go very quickly what I have.
Okay.
Gwangju also has some connection with ICCAR. It used to be a member. Then we also host a meeting 2012. So this is the goal we have, some collaboration with UNESCO Bangkok office. And then we want to implement 10-point plan of action. And then we are determined to expand the ICCAR operation as well as Human Rights Cities Network. We are all familiar with these devices, but as a devices, we want to use 10-point plan of action and as giving award to our members. We want to give some training opportunities to local government officials in our ICCAR network coalition. And then
We should give you a few minutes to see if you can sort out your slides and maybe come back.
Fast.
What do you think? Yes,
Slow.
so shall we do that?
I will go slower.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's give Professor Shin a minute to work on the technology, and in the meantime move to the Arab Coalition, which is represented by Mr. Mohammed El Nahawi, who is the Special Advisor to the Mayor for International Cooperation in Nouakchott. And I have to confess, I've never heard of that city before, and I had to look it up. So I hope I pronounced it reasonably. So Mr. Mohammed, would you like to make your presentation? We can see your slide, but we don't hear you yet. Are you able to unmute?
Hello, everyone. Do you hear me?
Yes, now we do.
Okay, so first of all, and before everything, I would like to thank you for this opportunity. My name is Sheikh Bahaida. We are from Nouakchott region, and right next to me is Mr. Mohammed Lamine, the counselor of the president of Nouakchott region. Unfortunately, he doesn't speak in English, and the word that he prepared is in Arabic. So we will try to present the word of the president in Arabic, and we will try to speak slowly in order to give the opportunity for the translator if there is an interpretation in Arabic, in English. Okay. Okay, great.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله صلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. صدق الله العظيم. صاحبة السعادة مديرة البرامج والسياسات باليونسكو، أصحاب السعادة قادة التعارف الدولي لمدن المستدامة الشاملة للجميع، أيها السادة، أيتها السيدات، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. يشرفني بادئ أن أتقدم.
Your Excellencies, representatives of UNESCO and the cities, members of the ICCAR.
يشرفني بادئ أن أتقدم بالشكر الجزيل باسم صاحبة المعالي السيدة فاطمة عبد المالك لمنظمة اليونسكو.
I bring you the best regards of the mayor of Nouakchott.
على تنظيم هذا المؤتمر الهام.
And congratulate you for holding this important event.
والذي ينعقد في ظرفية استثنائية اتسمت بانتشار جائحة كوفيد-19.
And which is being held under unconventional circumstances due to COVID-19.
وهي الجائحة التي عانت منها دول العالم على جميع الأصعدة الاجتماعية والإنسانية والاقتصادية.
It is a pandemic that has affected the world at all levels, economic and social.
وخاصة دول المنطقة العربية ومدنها التي تبين أنها لم تكن مستعدة لمواجهة أزمات أو كوارث بحجم الجائحة التي نعيشها اليوم.
The Arab cities were particularly affected because they were not prepared to face such a pandemic.
على الرغم من تداعيات هذه الجائحة وآثارها الإنسانية والاجتماعية.
Despite the humanitarian and social impacts,
وما نجم عنها من ركود اقتصادي وتوقف للمشاريع والخطط التنموية.
Especially on the economic front where many projects have been stopped.
فقد كشفت لنا كذلك هشاشة مدننا وعجزها عن الوقوف في وجه الأزمات والكوارث.
We were concerned that Arab cities are unable to face such a pandemic.
لذا أصبح لزاما علينا من باب الأخذ بالأسباب.
Therefore, given these circumstances,
إعادة التفكير في أنماط تسييرنا وخطط عملنا استراتيجيتنا التنموية المستدامة.
we had to rethink our development strategy for achieving sustainable development.
أيها السادة، أيتها السيدات، إننا ونحن نجتمع اليوم بعد مضي ما يربو على عقد من الزمن.
Ladies and gentlemen, we meet more than 10 years after the establishment of the coalition.
على إطلاق تحالف المدن العربية ضد العنصرية والتمييز وكراهية الأجانب والتعصب.
It's the Arab coalition against xenophobia, racism, discrimination, and intolerance.
بمدينة الدار البيضاء بالمملكة المغربية الشقيقة.
Which was established in Morocco, in Casablanca.
لقمين بنا أن نقيم ونراجع ما تحقق من إنجازات وما وقع من إخفاقات واختلالات.
And after a review of what has been achieved during this period and what has worked and what has not worked.
هذا وإننا هنا على مستوى مدينة نواكشوط.
And here in Nouakchott,
وانطلاقا من قيمنا وثوابتنا وما يمليه علينا ديننا الحنيف.
Given our mandate and what we are required to do based on religion.
ورسالته السمحة التي ترفض كل شيء من أشكال التمييز والاستعلاء.
Since religion refuses all sorts of discrimination of any sort.
سعينا جادين إلى انتهاج مقاربة تقوم على محور المسببات.
We have called for an approach that is inclusive and against all forms of discrimination.
والحيلولة دون الوقوع فيها سبيلا إلى الوقاية.
As a way, as a preventive also approach.
وفي هذا الصدد سعينا إلى نشر ثقافة التسامح والعدل والمساواة والانصهار.
In this perspective, we have called for tolerance and the adoption of an inclusive approach.
وتغيير النظرة النمطية السلبية اتجاه العدل العرقي.
And to avoid all sorts of stereotypes, especially based on race.
إلى قيمة إضافية يمكن شكل رافعة للتنمية وثراء التنوع الثقافي.
Racial diversity is actually a pillar of development that should be used for advancing development.
كما سعينا بشكل أكثر شمولية إلى تحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة.
We have sought to achieve the goals of sustainable development in an inclusive way.
من خلال العمل على محاورها 17.
By working on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals.
بيد أننا تواجهنا العديد من العراقيل الجوهرية.
However, we are faced by a number of critical challenges.
والإشكالات مثل مشكل الفقر والبطالة والتخطيط العمراني.
Especially poverty and unemployment and urban development problems.
أيها السادة أيتها السيدات.
Ladies and gentlemen.
إننا نعي جميعا أهمية المدن ومحوريتها.
We recognize the importance of cities as engines of development.
باعتبارها فضاء يقطنه ما يزيد على 60% من سكان المعمورة.
As a space that holds more than 60% of the population.
وعاء للتلاقح الثقافي والإذني.
Yes, it is also a space of cultural dialogue.
والتعايش السلمي.
And peaceful coexistence.
والتعايش السلمي لكنه في الوقت ذاته قابل لبذل التطرف والانحراف.
It is also a place where challenges of social clashes can happen.
إذا لم تتوفر السلطة حاليا على الوسائل من أجل الاضلاع بالدور المنوط بها.
Unless we take action in that respect.
لذا يسعدني أن أنتهز هذه الفرصة.
Therefore, I seize this opportunity
لأدعو الجميع إلى تجسيد روح قيم التضامن فيما بيننا.
to uphold the utmost feeling of support.
للعمل سويا من أجل.
To work together.
نبذ خطاب الكراهية والتطرف.
In solidarity against all hate speech.
بثقافة التعاون بين المدن.
In a spirit of cooperation between cities.
تحقيق الاكتفاء الذاتي في مجال الغذاء من خلال تشجيع الزراعة الحضرية.
And to achieve self-sufficiency in agriculture through urban agriculture.
جعل مدننا أكثر صمودا في وجه كل الأزمات مستقبلا والتكيف معها.
To make our cities more resilient to all sorts of shocks in the future and to be able to deal with these shocks.
إعطاء عناية أكبر للصحة والتعليم والتكوين.
Provide further attention to health, education, and other services.
خلق فرص عمل للشباب لحد انتشار البطالة.
And to create employment opportunities, especially for youth.
ما أدعو كذلك كافة شركائنا الفنيين والماليين لدعم مدننا من أجل تحقيق هذه الأهداف.
I also call on all our partners to support us in these endeavors.
وختاما.
Finally.
يسعني إلا أن أجدد الشكر للقائمين على هذا المؤتمر.
I would like to reiterate my thanks to the organizers of this event.
متمنيا لمؤتمرنا النجاح.
Wishing this forum the best of luck and success.
ولمدننا المزيد من التقدم والنماء والازدهار.
And to our cities all the prosperity.
والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
Over to you, Sue.
Thank you very much for that. Obviously, you're a very active network, having managed to still have a meeting despite COVID, and it looks like you had really good attendance at that too, so that's great. So we have now been joined by the Honourable Olive Namazi, Minister for Health, Education and Sports from Kampala City, Uganda, representing the African Coalition of Cities. So Ms. Olive, we would like you to take the floor to be the next speaker if you're ready.
Unmute your microphone, please.
Hi, everybody. It's afternoon here in Uganda, specifically Africa. Can you hear me, Sue? Can you hear me? Okay, that's good, that's good. So I'm saying it's afternoon here. I don't know if it's morning that side, but good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. My name is once again Honorable Olive Namazi. I'm the Minister for Public Health, Education, Sports and Environment at KCCA, and I'm basically here today to represent His Worship, the Lord Mayor of Kampala Capital City Authority, Arias Lukwago, who is not able to make it today, and also who is a member of the steering committee of ICCAR. I want to thank the organizers of today's meeting. Thank you so much. Thank you for feeling for the cities, and thank you for gearing this inclusive development. We really, really appreciate. Basically, what has been happening is ever since I think the last time that you met, we've had COVID. So we've not been able to achieve much because a lot of activities have been affected by COVID-19, especially now for us in the African countries. We've not really been in the other continents, but our major challenge has been days when we had to go to a lockdown, and we have come out of lockdown. People have lost their jobs. There's a lot of increased crime rate in the cities because people don't have what to eat. They lost their jobs, and things are so expensive. So COVID-19 has really affected us, even in the implementation of these 10 points of ours that we were able to come up with. It has been affected because we had set up various meetings with some of our partners like UNHCR and many others, but we've not been able to achieve this. There was usually we sit in our councils where we pass most of these ordinances and policies, but we've not been able to sit as planned. You find that instead of sitting 4 times, you're sitting once or not even sitting because we have to adhere to the SOPs, and sometimes we are not able to adhere to them, and many others. However, I want to thank you for advocating for global solidarity and collaboration to promote inclusive urban development free from all forms of discrimination. That's very, very good. But I've realized that there's a small challenge. As Africa as a continent, we do not have a chapter. We do not have a chapter, and that is affecting the implementation. And when we talk about these issues, it creates a gap. It creates a gap because we are supposed to reach out to some of the stakeholders in our different countries. People of influence, people like the presidents, the ministers, the different people in these African countries. But because we have not come up with an African chapter, it is creating a very big gap. So I believe that the steering committee of ICCAR should support the African partners, because that most of the countries are developing, and then that means that we need extra support as African cities, and that is why it is important. That is why you should make it a point. That is why you should put it among your action points to be able to facilitate the starting of this this the African chapter. I think it will help us a lot in implementing the different points that we put up, and also it will help in reviewing them, and also create a more of an inclusive have a chapter as Africans. It has created a gap in human resource. You find that we have a lot to do, but we don't have enough human resource because we do not have a chapter that is working. And you find that we are facing a challenge of capacity. You find that most of the people that you have in our cities who are supposed to be implementing these 10 points do not have the capacity. So it is very important as ICCAR, as we are moving forward, as we are reviewing these points that we have, these 10 points that we have, that we are working with, the capacity of the people in the different cities. Now, in our city, we work with the technical wing that is headed by the executive director and their staff, and I think that happens even in the other different African countries. So it is very, very important. It's not enough for us for you members of the steering committee to have this information, but the information needs to trickle down. It needs to be decentralized, because you find that the Lord Mayor works with an executive, and apart from working with an executive, there are also other leaders in the city. So it is also important to try to bring those people on board, because at the end of the day, they are the ones who are going down to the communities. They are the ones who are engaging with the people and also trying to sensitize them and tell them how it is important to have an inclusive city, how it is important to do gender equality, how it is important. Now, some of them are now they are policymakers. Like in council, we have councillors who participate in budgeting. You find that there's need for gender budgeting, there's need for ordinances that are engendered, and you find that the people that are supposed to be doing this, like I said, do not have the capacity. Even when they have the capacity, some of them may not have this information. So it is important for ICCAR to not only be on the internet, but also to do much more to create visibility. I see in our 10 points, we are talking about creating more networks with other organizations. I think that is very, very important. If different websites, not specifically about ICCAR, it will be very good, because ICCAR is a very, very good concept, and I've loved it because it will really bring. Now, when we talk about social cohesion, it is very, very important. That means that we'll decrease the crime rate. That means that people will feel more safe in the cities that they're living in. Now, we are talking about refugees and migration. You find that in Kampala has over 1.5 million refugees that are coming, not because they don't have camps, but because the conditions that are in these refugee camps are really appalling. And you find that in one way or another, they end up coming to the city, and they are in some of these settlements, and they are new people. The citizens, the natives, don't know how to accept them now, because we are having refugees in Uganda coming in from all over the region. They are coming from DRC Congo, they are coming from Somalia, they are coming from Sudan, and I mean, they are coming in with a lot of diversity, and it's important for us to train our citizens, to sensitize them that we need to embrace each other with diversity. But you find a Somali fighting with a Ugandan because maybe a Somali is riding a border, whereby a Ugandan thinks that border work is supposed to be their job. So you find that there's lack of social cohesion there. So it's important to capacitate the people down here who are supposed to be doing that work, basically. And then, why we need an African chapter. It's important because you know what has been happening. Many of our Africans during this COVID-19 pandemic period, you saw that in China, many of the Africans were being victimized, and COVID-19 was being tagged on them. Actually, they were even being got from where they are staying in their hotels and everywhere, and they were being told that, and then they were victimized that they are spreading COVID-19, they are the cause of COVID-19 and all that. Well, you find that trickled down even to our African countries. They that to the Chinese that are here and are harsh to them because of what was happening back there in China. So it was very, if we had an African chapter, we would not wait for ICCAR, the international chapter, to come and deal with such issues. But African chapter would have come up very strongly to talk about these issues, to rebuke them, and also make sure that at least things get better. Things get better as we move on. Then I also think that our partners like UNHCR need to come up very strongly. Now, the issues of migrants and refugees, we do not have strong policies that are there to protect these people, and also to guide us on what is supposed to be done and what is not supposed to be done. So I believe that if UNHCR can strongly come on board, we shall be in charge of creating the bylaws and also ordinances that are there to protect the people. So they can come up and support in form of capacity, they can support in form of finances, and many others, to make sure that at least we are able to develop these policies that help the people, the migrants, the refugees, and many others. And then, yeah, we've been trying to create social cohesion. We've been trying to create culture, especially through tourism. For example, we've been working with the Uganda Tourism Board. We've been working Uganda Wildlife Authority, because now in our country we have clans, we have totems, and these are basically animals that show a sense of belonging in our cultures. So these different boards have come up, and they have helped us to put up some of these monuments, and these have brought people together, and they've been able to learn, they've been able to get that sense of belonging when it comes to culture. And it is during those opportunities, during those gatherings, that we get an opportunity to talk about cultural integration, to talk about oh yeah, so he's telling me to wrap up. No problem. I want to thank you so much for listening. In case of anything, you please let me know, but my cry, what I have to say as I finish, it is urgent. We need Africa chapter as soon as yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You made a very strong message there. That was great. And it's really good to know some of the things happening on the ground, like the reality of what cities are dealing with too. So I think you illustrated that very well. So thank you. I'd like to move on now to Latin America. And Ms. Fabiana Goyeneche, the Director of Social Development from Montevideo in Uruguay, is going to be the representative for the Latin American Caribbean. So Fabiana, can we hand over to you, please?
Yes, hello everyone. It's a really pleasure to be in contact with you again. Thank you to UNESCO, to Gwangju. We are very honored to participate once again in the steering committee. Montevideo, we would like to share with you that we consider that working for human rights has become a main role for cities in order to guarantee citizens quality of life, respect, and equality. As we shared in previous committees, the 10 points of action needed to be revised and adapted to the times we are living. We may have not imagined when we agreed to actualize them that we were going to do this in terms of pandemic and all that this implies. There are new goals, new difficulties to do this, but it's also very interesting for cities to discover everything we can do for our people, for the cities, for our regions. Because fighting discrimination is an everyday task and a necessity. Also, cities working for human rights are compelled to adapt their strategies to SDGs, which are the main strategy to ensure that we accomplish our government's goals without compromising the future. Montevideo has many years working against discrimination. We have established that the first mechanism for gender equality in our country, the first one for race equality, and now we also have a specific public policy for diversity, one for accessibility for people with disabilities, and also a plan for elderly people and for youth. But these are times that when we need to extend our efforts, and as we agreed, highlighting the way the 10 points of actions adapt to the SDGs and also help us to get through these times of a pandemic is very important. The main SDGs that we have found that we have to contribute to in these times and with our main strategy and our main goal of fighting discriminations are SDG number 1, the end of poverty. This should need no explanation, but in times where our world health crisis has brought one of the most cruel social and economic crises in the century in Latin America and in the Caribbean cities, we have to make all the efforts to fight poverty. And related to this one, SDG number 2, zero hunger. In our cities, we have started to see many people without jobs or with less salaries, and this has brought many difficulties, and hunger is one of them. SDG number 3, good health and well-being. Well, Montevideo has started a very interesting experience in fighting discrimination in health system. We have established training and sensibilization courses on sexual diversity, on racism, and on racial ancestry-related illness. In these times, we know that COVID hasn't affected everyone the same. I mean, it is true that COVID doesn't discriminate, or is it because it doesn't affect everyone the same way? We know it doesn't, because inequality is growing, and COVID is helping this inequality to grow in every way possible. We know that when we have racism, we have xenophobia, when we have discrimination, women, elderly people, Black people are more vulnerable to COVID, to health problems, but also to all the crises brought in this era. So we think that health has become a very important issue, and it has to be also a core in our new 10 points of action. Quality education is also very important. We have seen how education is very affected with every moment our society lives, and also in these times. So it has been terribly affected by COVID, but it also shows how young people leave the education system when they suffer discrimination. So it is also very important because it's very useful for us to bring the cultural changes that we think we need. SDG number 5 has become very important for Montevideo, for Latin America and the Caribbean. We have talked many times about gender discrimination, and we have to fight it. It has also a very affecting all the way we work in our government, and we think it has to continue being one of the most important points of view, transversal to all the work we do. And also we think that one of the key SDGs to the new points of action has to be number 17. I mean, partnership for the goals, working in alliances is very important. We know about that, right? I mean, ICCAR is about that. It's about partnerships. It's about citizens working together. It's about global cooperation, and we can commit to do that because all the cities we are here, I have the experience, have the tools to do that very well, and we have to share our experience for other cities to learn how to do it, to be able to use these tools to go further and to fight for human rights, right? And to do advocacy also. Of course, for this, participation of civil society is also very important. This is a subject we have talked about many times, and we think it's a very important tool for us to do the public policies. And also, last but not least, I would like to share that in this way that we are looking for the point of actions and the way we can adapt and actualize the way we are working, we think that in order to advance, it is important for us to share these experiences and to have different tools or different hubs, and maybe in cooperation among cities, to establish a new system to relate the points of action with the SDGs. And there are some ways cooperation is doing it. And also, we have to say again that the main goal that we have to look for in these times is, of course, human mobility. I mean, migrant people is a very important point for us for work. We have worked with migrant people all these years, and now, even when we human mobility has become a very special issue, because some ways we can't not move, we cannot travel, but human mobility is happening these days the same way, with different strategies, with different means, but people are moving all along the region, all along from one city to another, and we have to know that xenophobia is still out there, and we have to fight it. We have to make our cities welcome every people that can come here, that can pass through, and be very aware that discrimination in these times where we have perceived some kind of fear from the different other is very dangerous, and we have to commit all our efforts to fight all these ways of discrimination and xenophobia. So in order to close this position, I like to say that for us it's very important to adapt this new way of seeing the points of actions to the SDGs and have as main issues discrimination, human mobility, and of course adapting to the post-COVID era that we are really looking forward, that is very next and close to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fabiana. It's very good to hear again, very concrete policies. It seems like you've done a lot in terms of social policies and doing things to improve the lives of people on the ground. But yes, pointing out that now we're facing a whole raft of new issues as well. So thank you very much. So next I will move on to Ms. Laura Waxman. And Laura is Director of Public Security for the US Conference of Mayors. And in North America, the coalition is a little different because we have two coalitions, one for the US and one for Canada. So this one is representing the US.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It is good to see those of you whom I've met before again, even if it's just virtually. Appreciate all of the hard work of our friends at UNESCO of bringing us together for this steering committee meeting and keeping this going during difficult times. In many ways, America is a different place than it was at the time of our meeting just 1 year ago. We knew then that there was work to do, improvements to be made, but we really hadn't scratched the surface or begun to understand the problems relating to the systemic racism and discrimination that we face in the United States. 2020 has been characterized by three interwoven forces that have led us to this point. The coronavirus, which affects us all. It quickly became apparent last spring that COVID did not victimize people equally. Persons of color were and are still experiencing significantly higher rates of hospitalization and death from the virus than white people are. The economic slowdown, beyond the threat to lives posed by the virus, was the threat to livelihoods. The shutdown that began in March to protect people from the virus has exacted a much greater economic toll on people of color in our country. Throughout the months of the pandemic, Black and Latino unemployment rates have been consistently and significantly higher than the white rate. And a significant number of Black and Brown Americans are in essential jobs that put them in they are still working, but they are at greater risk of contracting the virus because They are in close contact with coworkers and with the public. And then finally, the protests and violence aimed at the police in our country. In late May, with the deadly virus still spreading across the country, the deaths of several Black men and women at the hands of police officers triggered public protests in cities across the country that drew police into sometimes violent confrontations with protesters. These protests called attention to evidence of systemic racism in policing and in our criminal justice system. Continuing into the summer, the protests evolved into a nationwide multiracial movement that is calling public attention to the broader underlying race-based and systemic inequities long crippling our society and our economy. Inequities in healthcare, educational opportunities, employment opportunities, and housing. The only good thing I can say about all this is that there is a new appetite for racial reckoning among many in our country, and certainly among many of the mayors. Since we are in an election year and just a few weeks away from an election that many believe will determine the future of our democracy, America's mayors have issued a call to the next president and the next Congress to take actions that will address the problems our cities and our nation face. In the area of advancing civil and human rights, we call on the president and Congress to promote inclusive, compassionate, and equitable communities and an inclusive, compassionate, and equitable nation that recognizes, respects, and values all people, regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, gender, or sexual orientation. We oppose any policies, actions, or comments that in any way discriminate against people because of their race, ethnicity, religion, gender, or sexual orientation. We acknowledge the profound impact of structural and systemic racism on communities of color and look toward policies that remedy longstanding inequities, including promoting Black male achievement. We call for establishing a federal commission to study and consider a national apology and proposal for reparations for the institution of slavery, as well as subsequent discrimination against Black Americans through the present day. We work to foster tolerance and prevent hate crimes, with a particular focus on the increasing trend of violence towards individuals and institutions based on faith, and condemn such incidents whenever they occur. Support and work to achieve passage of the Equal Rights Amendment and the implementation of policies that ensure genuine economic equality for women. Support LGBTQ rights and work toward guaranteeing them in every city and in the nation as a whole. Oppose violence and discrimination against transgender individuals. Revive civility and respect by listening respectfully to people who have different views, supporting efforts to work together across ideological and political lines, and working to rebuild civic trust through civil discourse, particularly during election seasons. And finally, consistently and unreservedly enforcing federal fair housing laws, which help local governments address discrimination and segregated housing patterns and take action to remedy past housing discrimination. I guess this is the 2020 version of our 10-point plan. The plan that we developed first in 2013 and updated in 2017 has continued to evolve. We know, of course, that we must do these things in our cities as well. It's not enough to call for national action. Action must be taken in our cities, and it is. Many mayors are working to make their cities more equitable, to dismantle systemic racism. They're forming boards and commissions to guide their efforts, undertaking specific initiatives finding new and better ways to do things. Through our Center for Compassionate and Equitable Cities at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, we continue to promote these efforts through meetings, by publishing best practices, and by providing mayors and city officials information they can use to find and implement solutions for the problems that our cities face. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think a good case study of adaptation on the run and how you can adjust a 10-point plan. Maybe it has an extra couple of points at the moment to deal with all of the extra issues that you're going through over there. But it's really great that you're taking such positive action to promote reconciliation and compassion and help people to get through this. So thank you very much for that. And I think we have a couple of comments in the from the audience that they particularly enjoyed hearing about that from you. So thank you very much, Ms. Waxman.
Thank you.
Now we're going to move to Canada, and we have Mr. Mohammed Musa, the Program Officer from the Canadian Commission for UNESCO, who coordinates and acts as the Secretariat for the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities in Canada. So Mohammed, please start your presentation.
Perfect. I'm actually, if it's okay, I can share my screen from here, and that way I can just click through the presentation. Perfect. All right. All right. Can everyone see that?
Yes. It's
Perfect. Excellent.
In presenter view, though. If you put it in.
Sorry, just give me 1 second. All right.
Yep, we have it now.
Perfect. Excellent. So thank you so much, first of all, to the organizers. Thank you to UNESCO for gathering us here, and to everyone involved with the ICCAR Steering Committee. As mentioned, my name is Mohammed Musa. I am the Program Officer for Social, Human Sciences, and Youth at the Canadian Commission for UNESCO. Just to give a bit of background of our coalition of inclusive municipality, we have been active in Canada since 2007 now. Our coalition is a network of our national commission to UNESCO in Canada, and now consists of approximately 83 municipalities across Canada, across the country. And so quite an active coalition. When we undertook this review to the 10-point plan, originally we began this process in February at our last in-person meeting. Of course, like everyone else, our plans were sort of thrown into loop by the pandemic. And this 10-point plan for us is certainly something of a working document that continues to be adapted as circumstances have continued to change as well. So with that, I'll sort of just begin talking a little bit about the review that we undertook and what I hope to share with all of you today as well. Our coalition is structured as such, where we have our membership, and we also have an advisory committee of approximately 10 members that represent municipalities across our coalition. And the purpose of that informally is sort of to have a core group of municipalities that are part of our coalition to continue consulting with as we go through new processes and practices for our coalition to help us better understand the pulse on the ground of our cities, of our municipalities. Our municipalities are really diverse in that we have cities as large as Toronto, which is the biggest city in Canada. with a population of over 3 million people, and cities as small and rural as Fort Saskatchewan with a population of 24,000. So implementing plans of action for municipalities that range in size, in cultural makeup, racial diversity is obviously challenging and will always be a bit more challenging, but it's a challenge that we embrace. For this review, we had a couple of priorities that we wanted to address. It included, and for us is always important to include and to understand the unique challenges and circumstances of Indigenous people on this land, as well as a larger focus on the nature of intersectionality and how that plays in to the 10 points and into how those policies and practices are implemented across our cities. I won't bore you with reading all through the 10 points. I know everyone is familiar and has adapted these to their cities, but I will give some general notes around each section and why we felt it was important to highlight these. In this section, one of the most important things that we felt was, first of all, given the nature of social movements around racism and the calling out of systemic racism across North America, but in Canada as well. I think what folks may or may not realize is that those calls that were heard loudly in the United States were also echoed quite loudly across Canada, where we see many of the same inequities and inequalities that exist within our systems here. And so it continues to be very important to our coalition that we monitor and increase our vigilance against active individual and systemic racism and challenge our institutions to do better. In this section in particular, what is important and what I would like to highlight is also the support that municipalities provide in helping their police services do better. We know that we cannot have, hope to have equitable, inclusive and sustainable cities until access to public safety is viewed as access to public safety by all members of our communities. Black, Indigenous, racialized communities need to feel comfortable and need to feel safe in accessing services from police as well. And so supporting police efforts in combating hate crimes is part of that strategy for us, as well as ensuring that we help police services in developing more equitable and inclusive policies and practices in dealing with racialized and Indigenous communities across the country as well. In this section, what we wanted to really highlight was here the focus on what makes the city as strong as it can be. And that's what we know is sort of getting back to what cities are best at doing. Cities are oftentimes the front line, the first point of contact between communities and their governments. And so ensuring that cities are, in a sense, walking the walk and not only talking the talk. Of course, instituting equitable and inclusive practices in labor is part of that. But what we need to see as well is that cities are practicing those things. They are also supporting measures to challenge racism and forms of discrimination. This is all the more important given the circumstances that we're living through right now with the pandemic, with COVID-19, which has exposed cracks in our society. They have not necessarily created new ones. They have created some new ones, but more than not, what they've done is show us what already exists and what our systems have been set up to do, for lack of a better term, and how we can no longer accept that. We know that our communities are only as sustainable as the cities, as the governments that serve them as well. And so all of this is part and parcel of doing that. And finally, and I'll end off here, there is a general feeling within our coalition that a principle of nothing for us without us is important, and something that we need to reflect to members of our coalition. The same way that young people demand, and rightfully demand, a voice at the table in co-developing policies and futures that will affect them down the line. We need to ensure that the same kind of access and principles are extended to our Indigenous communities in Canada, that are extended to racialized communities in Canada, gender and sexually diverse communities in Canada. Nothing for us without us makes a lot of sense for our group as a principle. It in itself embodies and entails what we hope to achieve, which is to have more inclusive participation, more equitable participation, and more voices around the table. This also leads into ensuring that our municipalities are providing culturally appropriate services to people who live with the health and social outcomes of racism and discrimination, whether that includes homelessness, extends to housing, addiction, mental illness. All of these things are important. And so really, I'll sort of end it off there. I just want to again thank all the organizers for having us here today, and to my co-presenters from coalitions around the world. It's been great to chat with you and to learn with you, and eager to hear more from all of you.
Thank you so much, Mohammed, and good to hear about participatory processes and how they're working in cities in Canada. I think all of these different elements that everybody's mentioned are all part of the package of being inclusive cities. It's the participatory processes, the policies, the different programs that you have, the issues or the capacity building that you need to do, and the knowledge sharing, which of course is very important. And this is going to bring us back to Benedetto Zaccaroli, who is, as mentioned before, the president of the European Coalition of Cities Against Racism. Is your voice up to taking the floor for a couple of minutes, Benedetto?
Yes, we will try. Oh, okay, I'm in. So thanks for all the speakers, because it was really, really interesting just to analyze it, try to understand better and better what ICCAR is. Because as I said today in the early morning in another panel with the Asian Pacific Coalition, I said, so ICCAR is not a fixed body. We don't have any rules. When the people ask me, you are the president of ICCAR, what does it mean? Nothing. It means nothing. So we can really tailor it, our mission on our on the name. So, and we are so totally different one of each other, and that is amazing, because it's the fantastic colorful of humanity. And I think that when UNESCO asked us and we agreed to revise the 10-point plan of action, we didn't realize that each of coalition has each of their needs. They cannot be exactly the same. There is not a global possibility to have the 10-point plan of action. So we have the 10-point plan of action. As in South America and Caribbean, they say, as in Africa, they say. So human rights are human rights. We don't have to divide the human rights in different continents. And for example, we are made by different bodies. For example, the European Coalition of Cities Against Racism is an association under the German law. We asked our lawyers, we cannot touch the 10-point plan of action. This is it. We cannot change, because it's like our constitutional chart. Because we are an administrative body that is peculiar. We are an association. When a city enters in the association, that is the coalition, has to vote in the town hall, in the municipality council, the agreement that is comprehensive of the 10-point plan of action. If we, at the level of association, change one of these points, or we add some point, we have to come back to all the city council just to ask them for a vote. Now we are 152 cities. In December, new 8 cities entering in our association. So that means 160 cities. It's impossible to imagine for us to come back to each city and ask them to vote. So for them, our decision that we already communicated to UNESCO is we don't touch the 10-point plan of action, but we can produce work papers, white papers, we can produce a lot of documents, and we can share each other. For example, during the last month, an ICCAR working group was established about the intersectionality point. And we decided to release a really brief document, a paper, a work paper, that is in the hand of UNESCO, and because we already done that, and with our peculiar system to work. With the way to work is through the working groups. We have active some working group now in which the cities, and let me say that thanks to the COVID situation, the working groups are more easy because everything is online. We don't have to say, okay, in 2 months and 3 months, they can work together each month, and there is no problem for that. There is something positive of the COVID, nothing else, I think, but something, yes. And then we have working group on Islamophobia. We are a working group on anti-Tsiganism. We are a working group of the reporting system. This is one of the things that I wish to enlighten for the ICCAR steering committee. How we can manage, and I think that we have to tackle this point, how we can manage to report to each coalition the situation of each cities and how the cities are improved their regulation within the cities against racism and discrimination. This is important. As, for example, Mr. Shin said about the possibility to have a measure, the data are important, how we collect the data to understand. And so that is a point also of intersectionality, I believe. So we cannot do everything. So ICCAR cannot do everything in Europe for everyone. We are peculiar on racism and some discriminations, but we know the intersectionality. We have to work, and in this work paper, I hope UNESCO can spread to you soon, we said we have to find some twin coalition that work in different domains. We cannot, as ICCAR, okay, we are the European Cities Coalition Against Racism. Okay, there are all this kind of discrimination, for example, for the LGBTQI population. So there are specific networks to that, and we can cooperate with them. We don't have to transform ourselves in a network omnicomprehensive, but at the end, there is not a peculiarity, and we don't have a singular and peculiar identity. This is our thought here in Europe. And we have to cooperate in this sense. But also the first, as I said before, is how to measure in our cities the situation, which with data. We have a working group about the reporting system. And when the work is led by the city of Barcelona, and are 10 or 12 cities that are working together, and they will share the first the first point of the works at the next General Assembly that we have at the early in December, next December. I wish to share with you what we are doing more than what we are thinking. Because if we are based about something that is called plan of action, means that we have to do something, not only to think. To think is something really, really, really easy. For all the people that are here, that I can see on my screen, it's easy for us to think. It's more difficult to act, and more difficult again to act together with other cities that are different than our cities. Can you imagine other continents? So I think that's this flow of things that we are trying to do. I'm really thrilled and waiting for the result of this working group of my association, because the ICCAR network is really, really, really engaged to work about that, because we need to have a reporting system. Otherwise, what are we doing? So we need to have this. And when we decide new, this is a refurbishment, when we will have the new system, I'll spread with you, because maybe can be something that we have to refer to or somebody. And then last, just to finish, because my voice is, but also your passion is at the end, I think. And then there is, we were cited in the last document, paper of the European Union, the action plan against racism. Just 2 cities network were cited by the European Union official document as tools to be against racism and discrimination on the local level. One is Eurocities network. I think that somebody of you maybe had some contact with them, is the cities network in Europe, and ICCAR. ICCAR is the first time. We work a lot just to be present, because as I said, and I go to the conclusion, as I said, being a network is essential to be heard at the upper level. Otherwise, there is, okay, maybe Montevideo, because it's a capital town, can absolutely heard by the national government in Uruguay. But what about the middle-sized cities, the small-sized cities? They have, and they are tackling the same issues, and they don't have voice. Being a network is to amplify all this voice, just to be heard from the upper level. For us in Europe is the European Union, not only that, but also UNESCO, that is the United Nations system. This is one of our possibility, and this is the one possibility also to be ICCAR. For sure, we need an African chapter, but not in 10-point plan of action. It's the African cities that has to develop what are the measures to tackle against discrimination and all the problems that we have in the cities, that has to give to us this. The specification in each continent cannot led by a centralized organization that said to them, is smelling to me as a colonialism. It's not that. I need to hear from the bottom what are the needs. And then after that, we can really build together a voice. When I was elected president 20 years ago, if you remember, the mandate was just only one, was Anna Maria that told us, it's time for ICCAR to have one voice. This is good, but it's just the first part of the sentence. Okay, we have the voice. I'm the president still for 1 year. I don't know if you want to enlarge because COVID-19 was totally disrupting us, but it's okay. But if this voice that is not at the best, has to be heard and has to say something, and we need to say something together, that are the 10-point plan of action, of course. But after that, we have to go in front to the upper level, that is United Nations system, that are the international organization, Congress, cities, and so on, to say there are more than 500 cities around the world that thinks that are acting against racism and discrimination. And they are proud to be together because it's the good fight that we have to fight. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Benedetto. That was great. And I think there'll be quite a lot of interest from some of the other coalitions about some of the ideas you presented, like the way that you use working groups to progress the work. And also, I think the message about what is the impact of ICCAR or the individual coalitions is quite an interesting one, because and you will notice that I mentioned this earlier today in the AFCAD meeting as well. It's really important in having a direction. There is a 10-point plan, and we know that it exists. And I think that the next iteration of moving forward may well be looking into things like, you know, how well are we achieving those points? What can we do better, etc., by having some kind of evaluation and reporting on this. You've also generated quite a lot of chat there too, if you want to have a look through it when you get a chance. Just before we finish, Professor Shin, did you want to take a couple of minutes to come back to your presentation if you were able to get it to work? Or will we move on to the discussion?
Yeah.
You were able to get it to work?
I think I am ready to do that.
Okay,
now.
we'll give you an extra couple of minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, we can.
That's good. So today we are trying to revitalize the AFCAD meeting, which has been dormant for a while, with some goals like this to expand the collaboration with UNESCO office, and then using the 10-point plan of action as a device. And then we want to expand the Human Rights City Network with the participation of 10-point plan of action implementation. And then we can also utilize 10-point plan of action. I will simply browse it through, using it as a device to give award to the members for them to be actively involved with implementing 10-point plan of action. And then we want to also provide opportunities to provide opportunities for the human rights training to the local government officials and citizen groups. And we also want to share best practices among the members to learn from each other. Hopefully, we will get this kind of results from our collaboration, sharing diverse projects so we can implement different projects, learning from each other, and then expanding local government network, regional, as well as global. And then in the end, hope we can even promote collaboration, economic, political, and cultural areas as well, including public health and environment in collaboration of UNESCO. Hopefully, Korean members can share more things about the COVID-19 containment. So through this collaboration, we hope that not just one-to-one, city-to-city collaboration, but we can expand one-to-multiple partner collaboration. We also hope to expand our collaboration with professional institutes. And then probably we can share funding opportunities. We can also invite educational institutes to work together. We can expand our local governments to more issues in human rights and then international issues of SDGs. We can work for environment, peace, trade, tourism as well together. Finally, we want to set up plan for member expansion, as well as making the system which will be facilitating the operation of ICCAR in the future. We also we want to set up award for as an incentive program to the members. We will soon meet again. But before I finish my presentation, hope I can suggest to Benedetto especially, when we have a regional meeting, hope we can invite members of the other coalition to participate and to learn by participating in different kind of meetings. Probably we can learn a lot from ICCAR meeting. Thank you, Benedetto, for taking it as your note.
Yes, no, if I can say something suddenly, so we have 2 appointments in which I can invite all of you, because it's easy, it's online. And the first is the general conference. Every 2 years, ICCAR, every 2 or 3 years, ICCAR manage a general conference with different speakers and so on. Will be the last week of November. And then in December, we have the General Assembly. That is an internal meeting, but if you wish, through UNESCO, I can ask our Secretariat to send you the invitation just to participate as you want, not obliged for 2 days, because I think that you fell asleep. But so, in the most important moment, absolutely yes, just to see how the working group day works and our General Assembly and so on. We vote the balance, because I think that I didn't know. I know that Sue now is worried that I take to speak again. But so, as I said in the early morning with Mr. Shin, and we are a particular association, so the cities that are within the association, they pay a fee, an annual fee. And that's, I don't know if in the other coalition that's happened, that the cities has to pay. So we have to approve a balance and so on. But this is a sort of incentives also for the cities to cooperate and work, because they pay to do that.
So that kind of expertise we can learn from what you are practicing or implementing. Thank you.
I thought you said 2 suggestions or questions. Was there another one? No? Okay. So we have a couple of minutes now to just have a little bit of discussion amongst the panelists. So before we open the floor to public questions. So I just wanted to pick up on a couple of things that people have mentioned. And I think the first one is that collaboration strengthens your work and gives you voice. And I think it would be really good for everybody to perhaps reflect on some of those things, or perhaps go into that a little bit more. I think Benedetto actually did give us an example with the European Union and how that's actually managed to get the work of ICCAR, which is it's not so much about recognition, it's actually about the fact that somebody else is valuing the work of the network and actually taking it on and doing something with it. So I'm wondering if there are any other examples like that from any of the other coalitions at this stage. I can ask, yes, Professor Shin.
Probably again, currently we are having World Human Rights Cities Forum, and then we are very happy that we invite the Executive Bureau meeting to our forum, even though it is being held online. Hopefully we can have the privilege of inviting you sometime in the future again. physically, if it is possible, even though the physical invitation would not be possible in the near future, still we are very happy that we invite you, whether it is online meeting or physical meeting in the near future.
Okay, so I'm wondering if the Latin American coalition has any examples, because you're one of the coalitions that is quite strong and you've been around for a while. You know, what are your key advocacy things that you've been working on and say advocating up at the national level and using the voice of the coalition to achieve the objectives of local government?
Yes, we have been working on actualizing the work of the coalition. We have many new cities in Latin America, and now what we are trying to do is that the planification of all our government includes the work with the coalition. So from the day one, you can do everything that a city has to work on is related to the work of the coalition and the 10 points of action. For this, we think it's very important to work in the collaboration that you mentioned, right? I mean, nowadays there are many things that we actually can't achieve if it's only by ourselves. And there are some cities that have been really good allies to do this. But it's very interesting when we share some experiences with cities that are very different from us. In Latin America, there's a great diversity in this, and because of the size of the population, of the geographic characteristics that we have, and this is a very good strength for the cities and for the Latin America coalition.
Okay, and what about in Canada, Mohammed? Do you have any examples?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for the question. So actually in Canada, we sort of have a bit of a unique setup in that way, because our coalition is run as through a network of our national commission to UNESCO. We operate in some ways at arm's length from our federal government and federal partners. And so while the bulk of our work obviously focuses on how we can mobilize cities and better resource cities in Canada, we also do have relationships with all levels of government and are able to move messages through that way. In particular, I guess what I would focus on is we've been sort of focused on a few key areas. Anti-Black racism has been a priority for our coalition and our commission over the last few months in particular, but prior to that, and a lot of that was done through the celebration and promotion of the International Decade for People of African Descent as well. And so what we're aiming to do is through a campaign of education and the celebration of the International Decade, also bring to light the unique circumstances of Black communities in Canada, Black diaspora communities in Canada as well, and ensure that their voices are heard. I mentioned before that in Canada, not specific to Canada, but particularly here, we do have we do quite a bit of work with Indigenous communities in Canada, which is certainly really important work as well, and something we cherish and take to heart as being very important. So yeah, I mean, I would say those are a few examples, but we are fortunate in that sense to have a close relationship with our federal government to really try and take the voice of municipalities, of cities, up through our provincial and federal systems.
That's great. And we've had some comments in the chat relating to knowledge products, and I think that knowledge sharing has been brought out as one of the strengths of the coalition. The fact that through the network, you can highlight good practices and share those so that they can be taken up and adapted into other circumstances. And I wonder if any of you have any thoughts to share about how you share knowledge, the benefits you get from that, etc. anybody would like to volunteer.
If it's okay, I could actually just say something really quickly. What I would say, so we've actually been lucky to co-develop some resources with our municipalities. So last year, we, as a coalition, co-developed 3 toolkits, one on welcoming newcomers and immigrants to Canada, one on LGBTQ2+ inclusion in cities, and a third on holistic approaches to reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. And so all of these toolkits were resources that were co-developed between our commission and our municipalities and disseminated through various networks. So our networks at a national commission level, but also through our network of inclusive municipalities. And I think the benefit for that goes both ways. I mean, on one hand, it's obviously a learning experience for us. We're able to gather so much important information, have important conversations, and you know, provide these resources as tangible things for our coalition members to be able to access that are specific to cities as well, and sort of speak their language, for lack of a better term. And so it's really a mutual benefit when we're able to work directly with them to co-develop resources like those.
Thanks. They sound super interesting, and I think for the Asian Coalition, we would be really interested to look at those as examples as well, because that's the kind of thing we've been trying to do. So since we're running short of time, I might now open the floor for any questions from the public. Is somebody monitoring and putting those up for us? There's a couple in here that are very specific. So I'll just go with one here. Does ICCAR have documents and working papers on the approach of the coalition and how can they be accessed? Perhaps Anna Maria, you could take that one. Anna Maria, are you there? Linda.
Yes, good afternoon, colleagues. This is Linda. Anna Maria is preparing for yet another webinar that you're organizing in a few minutes. Yes, of course, we will make available the documents and the website on the chat box if you wish. And also the email address of our team so that you can ask us directly if there is anything that you would like to get from us. But the website provides a complete picture of the whole international coalition. So we will put it on the chat box in a few minutes. Thank you.
Fantastic. That's what I was hoping you would say, Linda. Here's another question. How could interregional cooperation be enhanced among the coalitions, and what are some concrete incentives for coalitions to do this? Would anybody like to speak to that? I'm going to call on you, Benedetto, because I think you'll be a good one to answer that. So sorry about that, since your voice is giving out.
So I think incentives to be the first. So I can answer in this way, if you want, that the incentive is that we are human and we have to cooperate. But so skip this, that is the ideal. I think that's the interesting things is that we are aware that in each continent we cannot have the same solution or some solution, and we can find solution to problem or things that are spread all around the world. So is that the meaning to have the possibility to have establish a network like ICCAR that is international and again heard. Also because, as Fabiana said before, there is a mobility of humans. And so the humans, they came from all around the world. They are not so, for example, for me, it's essential to start a cooperation with the Arab coalition because we know, and you, so I know, I don't know the person that's made this question where he's from, but so for us as Mediterranean country, the issues that the Mediterranean bring with itself are to find solutions not only at the state level, but also at the city level. So we have two coalitions of cities, one in Europe, one the Arab, that means from Mauritania to Syria. So that is the Mediterranean area. Why not to start a cooperation between that cities? Because it's more easy, it's effective in that. This is my incentives to try to solve our problem or concern, but also with the African coalitions, and also to keep our eye on the globe and not only about the local, because Europe is just a local adventure, is not the world. Like United States are not the world, are a local experience. The global you can obtain with unifying these 7 regions and to speak with them. So second is a wish, that I have a dream, and these years that I said that would be interesting that in the next 2.5 years where my mandate will expire, we can reach some of these goals, like to do something together, like a campaign, like the problem as in every problem are the money, that we don't have any money to do that. But maybe with fantasy, maybe with creativity, to have an advocacy campaign or something like that, to say to the people that there are more than 500 cities around the world that are cooperating together to tackle the point of the racism and discrimination. I think that the people needs to know that. If you come in the street of your cities, oh, many cities, and they know that your city is part of a coalition against racism and discrimination. 0. Maybe neither the mayor, he knows that. But so we need to know also good news, because we need citizens that are proud of their administration and of their cities. The proud is also something that is not so being member of the GLBTQE+ community. We do every year the Pride March. So for us it's essential to be proud. And so also for the citizens, us to be proud. Let us knowing something and learn something also from GLBTQ. So we have to be proud, and maybe have a campaign that make our citizens proud to be part of our community. I know in Bologna is precious, for example. That's to know that is part of a community that found itself in nothing that is not ideal, but is something that is built day by day against racism and evaluating positively every and each difference that there is in the humankind. This is, I think, the added value. We have to do something together. Please give money to us, somebody that is online. Thank you.
It's a very good point that the regions aren't always separate, particularly with issues like migration, because, you know, it's not just a European issue, for example. So Linda, who is one of our staff from the Secretariat in Paris, would also like to comment on that question.
Yes, thank you very much, Sue. Thank you for raising that question. And so my name is Linda Tinio Leduara. I'm working in the team of Ana Maria Mylov. I'm coordinating the International Coalition. And I think that the very fact that we are all here together, gathered in this important World Human Rights Cities Forum, is already an incentive for interregional cooperation. We have learned so much from the inputs of all the speakers around the table, and we have just been impressed with all the comments that we are seeing in the Q&A box. People are listening to you, people are hearing what you're saying, the message has come across. So it is not just attending the conferences or the panels, but it is more about sharing what you have experiences, what you have as resources, and then looking together at a common future. And that future, we think, is about working together on joint projects. So coming up with something which we can call our own, building as different coalitions. We aspire to have a common project that will be internationally conducted by all the coalitions. And we think that this is the very first step that we are doing. Now we have revived the ICCAR platform. We are looking at the plans of action and we are actualizing them. So we are, I think, in the right path. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. And I'll just say that some of the questions have been quite specific about individual coalitions. So I think that we'll pass those on to the appropriate people to answer. And now I'd like to, we've got 6 minutes to go, so I don't know that we have time for any more questions. But we've just been joined by Ms. Angela Mello. Angela is the Director of Policies and Programs for our Social and Human Sciences sector at UNESCO in Paris. So she's very pleased to be able to be here with us today to be able to provide the closing remarks. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Angela.
Hello to everyone, and a very good day from Paris. Hi, Suze Weiss, Jana, Fabiana, Mohamed, Benedetto, Mohamed Musa, Laura Waxman, hello, and Professor Shin, how are you? So I'm sorry to just come a bit late, but I accompanied the discussion. I'm very happy that you already exchanged views, and this is a step forward. I think also it's a giant step forward because we need this kind of discussions in order to improve our rights, human rights sits forum. So let's have this cornerstone meeting, and I will deliver some remarks, but it's a bit formal, but this is a way in which we act during our discussions. So today has significant moments occasion for the International Coalition of Inclusive and Sustainable Cities, ICCAR, as we have gathered our regional and national coalitions to present their viewed 10-point action plan. This is indeed very great information news, but because we are looking closely with this 10-point action plan in order to really to work close with the Sustainable Development Goals and to fine-tuning your 10-point action plan. This discussion was indeed a unique opportunity that enables us to look back at how we have stood firm in our commitments through the years in order to move forward in positive synergy with the one another and with the world at large. This is a crucial step as we strive to discover from what has been both an unprecedented and difficult time for all of us, the COVID-19 crisis. There is no better time than now for us to act collectively, retrospectively, and most significantly, prospectively, to secure our desired future in the post-COVID-19. I think also the intention here is also the cities work in the prospective way. It means that we have this program on future literacies, and it's good also to have this kind of critical thinking on our reflection, on your reflections. It is with utmost gratitude that we thank the panelists for providing their valuable contributions and fulfilling the aims of the meeting. Beyond the presentations of the reviewed plans of action, this meeting has served as both a platform and as springboard for the different coalitions to achieve a better understanding for their respective implementation at the various levels and the concrete actions that have taken towards the reinforcement of human rights, creation of cooperative mechanisms, and establishment of partnerships, and among others. I have to say at this point that we had a discussion with the member states in Africa, and for the what we called UNESCO midterm strategy, which will be followed with the operational plans of action for the next 4 years. And one of the questions raised by the member states in Africa is also we need coalition of cities in Africa. I said, yes, it's true, but the point is we need your support to this coalition, because, for example, I remember very well, I attended a meeting with Benedetto, Linda, I think, no, Linda was not there, on the coalition of cities in Nantes, I think, yes. And we had just Nancy, yes. We had just one mayor from Uganda. So you need to support us. We need to support mayors in order to have them on board. Otherwise, we cannot do in the proper way, because we have a regional coalitions, the strongest. We have the strongest coalition, which is the European coalitions, but we have also Asia. We try to have an Asian Pacific with the SU supports, and Arab coalition also with the JANA, but JANA also we are happy with the coalition, Arab coalition, because they are on board, but you need really to increase cooperation with the coalition in Africa, because Africa for UNESCO is a global priority. So another priority for UNESCO, as you know, is gender equality. We are, for example, moving toward the adoption, hopefully, the ethics of artificial intelligence recommendation. And we are closely working on the gender equality lens through this recommendation, because they are bias, stereotypes, discrimination, gender. So this is another point you can take on board. And as I said, the promotion of gender equality has also been a central focus of the different initiatives in line with these commitments. It is also clearly articulated in commitment to eradicate discriminatory practices linked to gender. I think all of the coalitions, I think regional coalitions, we are also working on gender equality, right, Benedetto? I think this is the good step forward. In addition, it is a cause and advocacy that's deeply rooted in both the creation and renewal of our collective goals. In Bologna Declaration, it was noted how gender equality is a key factor for development, democracy, and inclusion. Another point to highlight here is we held the most ministerial forum, and social inclusion and discrimination is a key point. We will organize also European ministerial forums as African, Asian Pacific ministerial forum, and we would like to work with you and see how we can connect to each other in these programs, because you need also policies, you need also leverage the bar, reach the ministers and decision makers in this field. Gender equality is a key factor for development, democracy, and inclusion, and along with human rights, it represents cornerstones of socially inclusive municipal and urban settings. According to the Declaration of Nancy, this undoubtedly illustrated how commitment since the very beginning to stand for gender equality in eliminating discrimination in all forms, in all its forms. It is pertinent that cities and local government must now be well equipped to face these rising challenges head on, ultimately surpass them through solidarity and meaningful dialogues such as these, to chart our trajectory and discover new frontiers for our collective resilience and growth. It is also with the great enthusiasm that we look forward to building more partnerships as well as strengthening already existing ones through the framework of the coalitions. We are proud that UNESCO is leading this discussion with the framework of the World Human Rights Cities Forum. We hope that this will be start of a sustainable multi-stakeholder partnership. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and see you post-COVID in somewhere physically. Thank you. But over to you, who is leading? I don't know if Benedetto or the professor. So I finish with my intervention.
Okay.
It's Sue.
Thank you, Angela. And I think you'll be pleased to know that Minister Namasi made quite a strong call for a support to build up the African Coalition, Angela. So thank you again to all of the speakers, and please join with me in, we can't really give a round of applause from afar, but the equivalent of that, I know this is what we do in some forum where there's no sound. So this is a big thank you to everybody. Some very interesting presentations, again, showing the diversity of this coalition, the different approaches, the different priorities and things that are important in different parts of the world, but also the commonality of what can be done when cities work together to raise their voice. So thank you especially for getting up in the morning, speaking with sore throats, all of the competing things that you've juggled to be here, because I think we all really enjoyed it. And of course, a big thanks to Gwangju City and the World Human Rights Cities Forum for making the space available for this event, and also for the commitment that they've made to inviting everybody and being a long-term partner to help build the coalitions and promote local government dialogue for human rights all around the world. So a big thank you to Gwangju, and we hope that next time we see you all, it will be in Korea, and we can get to find out more about what Gwangju City is doing as well, because they have a number of their own initiatives. So good night, good morning, and good afternoon. And we'll see you all again soon, I hope. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.